All right, Mr. Bastian, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
That'll
let's
be an Alford Plea.
an Alford plea. Thank you. Let's get on the record. This is position 3 on our trial calendar, State versus Jamariel Thompson, 19 SC 165316. We have Ms. Clark representing the state and Mr. Bastian representing Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, you're ready to go forward with an Alford plea, which is a plea where you basically tell me I didn't necessarily do the things the state said I did, but I do want to work the case out in the way that my lawyer has been able to negotiate it. Does that describe your situation?
Yes, sir.
Good. Well, that's what we're going to do. Ms. Clark will put you under oath. You'll need to answer all her questions and mine. If you have questions, it's important that you bring them up. Let your lawyer know or let me know. Will you do that?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. All right, Ms. Clark, when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in the matter currently pending before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
You can put your hand down. State your name, your age, and your date of birth.
Jamariel Thompson, April the 22nd, 1985,
How old are you?
38.
Are you now under the influence of any medicine, drugs, or alcohol?
No, ma'am.
How far did you go in school?
GED.
Can you read and write in the English language?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you had an opportunity to review the document called the indictment, which lists the charges in this case against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you fully understand the nature of the charges pending against you?
Yes, ma'am.
By pleading guilty today, you are giving up certain rights: the right to a trial by jury, the right to be presumed innocent, the right to confront any witnesses that may testify against you, the right to subpoena any witnesses for your defense, the right to testify yourself and to offer any other evidence in your defense, the right to have an attorney to assist you throughout the trial proceedings, and the right not to incriminate yourself. Do you understand that if you were to plead not guilty or remain silent and enter no plea at all, then the state would be required to have a trial on these charges by jury?
Yes, ma'am.
You're pleading guilty today to the, Your Honor, in this negotiated plea, the defendant will be pleading to criminal attempt to commit armed robbery under OCGA 1641. The state intends to recommend no prosing the other counts, count 1 armed robbery, count 3 aggravated assault with intent to rob.
So he'll plead to count 2,
Yes.
and you are null prosing all remaining. He's charged in 1 through 6 and 9, and you're going forward with just count 2.
Yes, Your Honor.
Got it. Okay.
And the minimum and maximum for criminal attempt to commit armed robbery is 1 to 30 years. Do you understand you're not required to plead guilty to the charges unless the grand jury has heard sworn testimony and then charged you in an indictment?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you now serving any other sentence in confinement, or are you on probation or parole for anything anywhere?
No, ma'am.
You understand that you are entering what is called a negotiated plea of guilty. The state will recommend the following sentence to the court. For a plea of guilty to count 2 of the indictment, criminal attempt to commit armed robbery, the state's recommendation is 3 years probation. The defendant, special conditions of probation, weapon forfeiture. The defendant is to stay away from the co-defendants. Your Honor, the state is of the opinion that based on the age of the case and the fact that co-defendants have accepted responsibility as far as the armed robbery and a plea. Additionally, also the defendant in this case has offered mitigation so that we could actually offer or work something out short of trial. And so we feel that if the defendant does plead to the terms, that this is a acceptable just sentence in this case.
Okay.
Do you understand that the court is not required to follow this recommendation, but can sentence you to the maximum sentence permitted by law?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand, however, that if the court does not accept this negotiation, you have the right to withdraw your guilty plea today?
Yes, ma'am.
Should the court sentence include a period of probation, you will be required to obey both general conditions of probation and the special conditions of your probation. You understand?
Yes, ma'am.
You will be required to follow the general conditions of probation that probation will give to you when you meet with them, including but not limited to that, you are not to violate the criminal laws of any governmental unit.
Yes, ma'am.
You are also required to comply with the special conditions of your probation. And the special conditions are a weapon forfeiture. You are to stay away from your co-defendants. You do understand?
Yes, ma'am.
You understand that a violation of these conditions could lead to a revocation of your probation?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you entering your plea of guilty with an understanding of everything we just talked about?
Yes, ma'am.
Has anyone used any force, threats, or promises which caused you to plead guilty against your will?
No, ma'am.
Are you satisfied with what your lawyer has done for you in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any more questions for your attorney, Mr. Bastian, before we go on?
No, ma'am.
Have you understood everything that I have said to you thus far?
Yes, ma'am.
Understanding all of your rights, do you wish to enter a plea to these charges today?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it your decision to plead guilty, made freely and voluntarily?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you entering your plea of guilty pursuant to North Carolina versus Alford, meaning that you may not admit guilt to every element of the crime charge, but believe it is in your best interest to plead guilty today?
Yes, ma'am.
Are the facts of this case, Your Honor, at this time, the state will provide a factual basis for the guilty plea in this case.
Okay.
If this matter would have went to trial, the state would have been able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that on the incident date of February 5th, 2019, at approximately 11:58 p.m., officers were dispatched to a pedestrian robbery at the incident location of 518 Peg Road Southwest. Officers arrived on scene and made contact with the victim, Antoinette Frazier and Darius Bussey. Victim Bussey, spelled B-U-S-S-E-Y, stated that he and Ms. Frazier were walking on Peg Road Southwest towards Pomona Circle Southwest when a black Dodge Neon with a spoiler and paint missing off the rear end pulled up in front of them. Mr. Bussey stated that three unknown black males got out of the vehicle and approached them on the road. Mr. Bussey described the driver of the vehicle as a black male that was light-skinned, approximately 6'2" in height, having an average build with a mustache and short dreads with blonde tips. That was suspect number one, was wearing a red sweatshirt with something shiny written on it with dark colored pants. Mr. Bussey described the front passenger as a black male with dark skin, approximately 6'4" in height, having a skinny build with short black hair. Suspect number two. Suspect number two was wearing a black hoodie with dark colored pants. Mr. Bussey described the rear passenger sitting behind the driver as a black male, approximately 5'9" in height, having an average build with a mustache and goatee, as well as having a short afro, which is suspect number three. Suspect number three was wearing a black hoodie and dark colored pants. Mr. Bussey stated the suspect number one had a silver and black handgun, and suspect number 2 had a black handgun with an extended magazine. They pointed the handguns at himself and Ms. Frazier. Suspect number 2 stating, "Giving everything you have." Mr. Bussey stated that he handed over his wallet containing $45, a Chase bank card, Ms. Frazier's ID, and his driver's license, and his cell phone, which is a black Motorola E-5, to the suspects. Mr. Bussey stated that the suspects then attempted to take the backpack off of Ms. Frazier's back by pulling on it. However, they were unsuccessful by Ms. Frazier not taking the backpack off. Mr. Bussey stated that suspect number 1 stated that they were just gonna have to take this loss and that they better not snitch. All suspects then got into the vehicle and drove away towards Metropolitan Parkway Southwest. Officers gave a description of the suspects over the vehicle radio. Ms. Frazier provided a verbal statement which coincided or was similar to the statement that victim Bussey provided. Officers contacted investigations and informed them of the incident. And the G.I. Bacon, which is an investigator and robbery investigator Maldonado, stated that they had 2 black males detained matching the description of suspect number 1 and suspect number 2 located at 3901 Camilton Road Southwest. Investigator Monaldo stated that he observed the 2 suspects while working on a separate robbery at the location. Investigators took recorded statements from the victims. Zone Supervisor Wolf arrived on scene and was advised of the incident. The officers conducted a show up with the victims, Mr. Bussey and Ms. Frazier, of the suspects, and the defendant was identified as one of those. Arrest warrants were issued, and the defendant in this case was arrested.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Hardy, do you have criminal history information for Mr. Thompson?
Yes, this defendant has 8 arrest cycles in Georgia, a felony conviction in 2009 for criminal damage to property and possession of tools for the commission of a crime. They received first offender status and it was sealed in 2017, and 1 probation violation. Nothing further to report.
Thank you. Mr. Bastian.
Yeah, 2 things. As far as the recommendation is concerned, I think we're doing 3 years and a date in 18 months.
A what in 18, a behavioral incentive date?
Yeah.
Did you, correct?
Yes, Your
Okay.
Honor, that's correct. My apologies.
No problem.
And as far as Mr. Jamari Thompson is concerned, the facts are complicated. Unfortunately for him, he was found in the vehicle, but everything else doesn't match.
So I'm pretty familiar with Mr. Norris's situation. That's the co-defendant here. So I'm intrigued as to what an alibi would have been, or he's in a car. That neon was pretty distinctive, and there was, in fact, another armed robbery that same night. And I think some of the belongings of someone were found in, and probably Mr. Bussey's stuff was found in it. So folks are pretty clearly implicated. Tell me the angle as to why Mr. Thompson was merely present.
Okay, so the robberies occur. They live in the same neighborhood at the time, at least. Car pulls up and they tell him, listen, can you go up and go get something at the pharmacy with me? He goes there. This is before the police officers comes. He comes back around. The cops are there. Bang him in. And he's like, listen, check this. So
Right.
for his benefit, I mean, we tried to do the cell phone records to try to ping it. It pings places, but we don't know what the jury is going to say because it's still not
It's
too
nearby,
far. It's only
right.
like a
Yeah.
And the other stuff is finding out the car, in the car. So who knows? And of course, the co-defendant is not saying it's not him.
Right.
So here we are.
Okay. Got it. Mr. Thompson, is there anything you want to add? You don't need to talk more about the facts of the case, but you've been on bond now for a bunch of years and you did just fine on bond. Have you been working or what have you been up to?
I've been working up on the table, but now I'm working on,
He's been working.
Okay, no, but I'm intrigued. You're not gonna get more trouble because you were up under the table. Are you now above the table?
Yeah.
All right. It's better to be above the table.
Yeah.
What is going on above the table?
Warehouse, work.
Cool.
That's all.
Is it through a temp agency or are you full-time?
Put through a temp.
Okay, well, good for you. And you have a stable place to live?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
sir.
Good. All right. Any questions about anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Thompson, I find there's a factual basis for your plea. This may have been the worst coincidence ever in your life, or maybe you knew what Mr. Norris, the kind of guy he was, and you don't need to respond. I'm just playing out scenarios that a jury would work through, and like, that's too much of a coincidence. He might have thrown you some money to grab something from the pharmacy, and you knew what kind of money he had, and you were in on it. Who knows? I also find that your plea is knowing and voluntary. No one's forcing you to enter this plea, and you're entering it with your eyes wide open, having had a chance to talk with Mr. Bastian and having had a chance to go over with Mr. Bastian the plea form that has your initials next to all your rights. Did you initial these and then on the fourth page sign the document?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Bastian, you've signed it as well?
I have, Your Honor.
Great. I will accept this as an Alford plea, which is a plea where you're saying, maybe I didn't do everything Ms. Clark said, but I like this offer. I'm going to take it. Is that you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's how we'll do it. Mr. Bastian, may my staff sign the indictment on your behalf?
Yes.
And Ms. Clark, can we sign for you? Yes. Is it all right if we sign the indictment indicating your guilty plea to count 2?
Yes.
Alford plea to count 2. Yes, great, we'll do that. I'm going to sentence you on count 2 to 3 years of probation. Insofar as there was a gun seized in this case, you're not going to make any claim for it. That'll be forfeited. You will need to stay away from Peg Road. Is that going to be all right? I don't know where you live.
Yes, sir.
You don't need to be near Peg Road? No?
No.
Good. All right. And no contact with Mr. Norris. He's going to be in custody for a while longer. And no contact with these alleged victims. And if you do well on probation in, let me do the math, 25, on March 21st, 2025, probation can say, Mr. Thompson did a great job and we're going to scale this back. Okay?
Okay. Yes, sir.
So that's an incentive to do all the things you need to do. Mr. Bastian, anything else in Mr. Thompson's case?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Clark? No. Ms. Tucson, what information do you need from Mr. Thompson so he can get signed up with probation?
Address and phone number?
3901 Camden Road, Southwest.
1 second. Do that one more time.
3901 Campbellton Road.
3901 Campbellton.
Southwest,
Okay.
zip code 30331.
And do you have a phone number, Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
And
47.
it's directly to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and your number?
470
Mm-hmm.
250
Mm-hmm.
5828.
470-250-5828. Okay, I will call you with further reporting instructions, but an officer I'll call you after that sometime in the next week or two for intake setup, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You're done. I feel like I got to know you. Came to court 700 times. This case is so old. Mr. Bastian, thank you for plugging in with it and helping us close this one out. Thank you, Ms. Clark.
Thank you.